Hey there, it's BoardGameDave. Today we're taking a look at a game called Wizards of the Grimoire, a two-player dueling combat card game from Grimoire Games. This is a review copy that was sent to me, and I was very excited to receive this game, even though I didn't know too much about the gameplay mechanisms, but there was a couple things that really attracted me to this game. First, the box design is so wonderful. It looks like a tome sitting on a shelf. It's been up here for a while. I wonder if you noticed it in my videos, but I love the small box and the unique design. I really love the two-player only experience. I think that's so great. I'm finding that I really appreciate a game that's tailored to the two-player only experience. And finally, the artwork in this game is absolutely gorgeous. They spared no expense in creating this gorgeous, lovely, very detailed artwork that's just transports you into this fantastical, magical world of the Grimoire. In this game, you and your opponent take on the role of rival wizards of the Grimoire who are sworn to protect the eternal book of spells. Now, the head of this sect, the Archmage Andor, has died suddenly, and as is tradition, you and your opponent need to engage in wizardry combat. So, throughout the course of the game, you're going to be acquiring new spells, charging them up using mana, and then casting those spells at your opponent in a literal duel to the death to determine who is going to become the new keeper of the Grimoire. So now that you know a little bit about the game, let's head to the table and I'll teach you very quickly how to play Wizards of the Grimoire. So here we are all set up for a game of Wizards of the Grimoire. We have 10 spells randomly drawn from the spells deck, and then we have a mana deck right there, and that is all you need to get started. Let's go ahead and take a look at one of these spells. I had to show you this one because I absolutely love the art on this card, the Dance of Pain. Wow, that is so awesome. Anyway, on each spell, you're going to have the gorgeous art, you're going to have the name of the spell, the effect of the spell, and then how many mana cards it takes to activate that card, as well as this little icon here, which you can use your handy dandy player aid to understand these symbols. So there's 3 different spell types. There's ones that do damage, there's regeneration spells, which help you get more mana, and then utility spells that let you kind of manipulate, move mana around the spells that you have. There's also instant spells, which you activate immediately, delayed spells, which activate as you pull mana off the cards, and then finally ongoing kind of passive ability cards as long as there's mana on them. So lots of different types of spells, although largely they're these instant abilities. So anyway, you've got your town spells there, and then you pick a first player, and we work through our opening phase. Very simple. Player 1 chooses a spell. Of course, they're going to take Dance of Pain, because the art is so awesome. And then we draw, one new card. Player 2 then chooses a spell. So let's say they pick Touch the Void. Okay, so they choose that. Another card comes out. Oh, I like the art on this too. Look at this. That's a cool card. Interesting. I love that. Fatal Flaw. So, player 1 chooses a second spell. There you go. And then we start with player 2, who takes their normal turn. So, choose a spell, choose a spell, choose a spell, and then player 2 technically takes the first turn of the game. So, this is a turn breakdown. It's very straightforward. There's 5 steps, okay? First, you choose a new spell. So, I'm going to take, let's say, Doom Drop, okay? Real simple. Right? And we replace that immediately. Then spell cooldown. So each of my cards that have mana cards on them, which is how you activate these cards typically, is going to get a mana removed from each spell. Okay, so we'll see that in a second. Then we gain 3 mana, so we draw 3 cards. Now, these mana cards have different values on them, from 1 all the way up to 4, 4s being very rare, 1s being very common. So I've got my 3 mana cards. And then I can cast spells, and then finally do a basic attack, which I'll talk about at the end. So, using my cards, I want to activate my spells. Now, this one costs 3 mana cards, and this is 2 mana cards. Now, it doesn't really matter what the value of these cards is. Of course, there are cards that do take that into effect, but for right now, they just go face down, and I use them to activate the cards. So, for example, let's see. I could, of course, play 2 mana cards on top of that card. 2, Touch the Void, deal damage equal to the quantity of mana cards on one of your spells. So right now, that would just be 2. I could do 2 damage, right? Or I could play all 3 of my mana cards on this one, which has an ongoing effect. So I play all 3 like so. And then from now on, each time a mana card is discarded off this spell, deal damage equal to that mana's power, which is ongoing because nothing happens right now. Later in the game, as I discard cards off the top, it will do damage equal to that mana's power, which honestly, with all these 3s and 2s, I probably would rather do that. So I'm going to top deck the 3s, okay, and stick that on here. So nothing happens right now. I don't attack on this turn. Now, I said I'd tell you about the basic attack. At the end of your turn, after you do all your spells, you may discard any of your mana cards to do that much damage. So if I didn't want to use that 3 mana card for the spell, I could just discard that to do 3 damage. But for right now, we'll just leave it as is. Oh, of course, each player starts with 60 HP, which you can see on these HP cards. You can also use the app that's free and available in the App Store for this game. So, as a health tracker. So, that was a full turn, everybody. Real simple, okay? Really quick, let's let player 2 go ahead and do a spell or do a turn as well. So, they choose a new spell. I'm not going to think too much about it. I'll take this Bad Fortune card. Okay, we replace that. Next spell cooldown, again, doesn't apply right now. We're going to gain 3 mana. 1, 2, 3. And then player 2 can activate some of their things. Well, player 1, I suppose, okay? So I'm not going to think too much, like I said, about it, but I do like this card right here. We're going to spend 2 mana for the Dance of Pain. There you go. And immediately deal 3 damage. So this goes down to 57 down there. And then discard or gain mana until you have 2 mana cards in your hand. Well, I only have 1, so I would draw 1 more. And then this would be a good time to basic attack, right? I'm going to spend that 3. Discard it and do a basic attack down to 54 for the other player. That's awesome. And then this stays in my hand. Now we go over to player, oh geez, this is kind of complicated, player 2, right? Who's going to choose a new spell. By the way, you are capped at 6 spells, and later in the game, if you do have a full complement of 6 spells, you may replace a spell that doesn't have mana cards on it. So you can still get new spells. Whoops. So there we go. I chose a new spell. Next, I'm going to do a spell cooldown. So each of my spells, I remove 1 mana card. Now, we know that this one has that ongoing ability. So as I remove this card, it says, each time a mana card is discarded off a spell, deal damage equal to that mana's power, which is 3. So that was a nice kind of sneak attack. Takes our other player down to 57. And then, of course, I gain 3 mana and then cast spells. So honestly, that's all you got to do. The game ends as soon as somebody's HP gets down to 0. And you just take turns going back and forth doing that. You choose a new spell, cool down your spells, gain 3 mana, cast spells, basic attack if you want to, and that's all you have to do.
And there you have it. That's how you play Wizards of the Grimoire. Now let's make our way through my 7-point criteria system that I use to rate games, starting with art and components. Like I said before, I love this box. I love the design. I love this magnetic little flap right here, and I love that all the components are in this very, very small box you can throw right onto your shelf, and the art on the cards is absolutely lovely. I'll show you some in the B-roll, but these cards are just absolutely stunning. Love the artwork, and the cards themselves are exceptional quality. I literally cannot think of a game that has nicer cards than these. They're thick, they're textured. Oh my gosh, they're like a joy to handle. I don't know what finish they have on here, but it's really, really nice, thick, lovely, gorgeous, colorful cards. I give the art and components for this game a 9.5 out of 10. Virtually perfect, although component-wise, it is just cards. I could have gone for like a metal token for first player or something, but yeah, it's just fantastic. 9.5. Next is complexity versus audience. So who is the audience for a game like this? I would say people that enjoy card games, that enjoy tactical combat, strategic card games, people who might be into games like Magic the Gathering, of course, would be into unique cards that have special text and powers, and you read new cards as they come up and find the combos and trigger different chain reactions and things. My friend Gary, for example, played a whole bunch of Magic the Gathering. He's a huge MTG fan, and I showed him this game and he really, really enjoyed it. Absolutely got a seal of approval, and we really had fun playing this on multiple occasions because he liked it that much. And again, with an audience like that in mind, people who enjoy a little bit of strategy, a little bit of again, reading a lot on each card, they're gonna love this kind of game. So complexity versus audience, 9.5. They know their audience and they made a game that's perfectly weighted for that type of gamer. Third is thematic integration. Now, you're a little bit constrained with the medium, of course, like how much theme can you pull off in a stack of cards, but honestly, the designers did a really good job of trying to bake in thematic tie-ins into these spells. So sometimes the name of the spells kind of hint as to what they do mechanically, and Hannah and I enjoyed finding those cards that, like, for example, contamination, okay? You're gonna put 2 mana cards from your hand on the mana deck. If you do, deal 4 damage. So that's really fun in its own right, but then I was thinking, like, wait, on the next player's turn, the first thing they do, or one of the first things they do, is draw 3 cards from the mana deck. So if you put 2 1s on top of the deck, they have to take them. You're contaminating that mana deck. I love that. There's there's cards like Shared Power, where you help out your opponent, but then you do extra damage to them, or Betrayal, or Rejuvenation, Freeze, Doom Drop, Haste. Again, a lot of these cards thematically, they kind of give you a little background for what the card is doing. So I love that tie-in. It's not the most thematic game, but they really did a good job with, the limitations. So I give it an 8 out of 10 for thematic integration. Next is replayability. Now I struggle with this one a bit because I'm comparing it with games like Maracaibo that have sort of a storytelling legacy element, or games like Scythe that have asymmetric powers. Now this game doesn't have any of that, but what it does have is a huge stack of 70 unique spells. And the last time I played this game with Hannah, I realized that just because of the way we played, we only saw 22 of the cards. So we hadn't even gotten through a third of this giant deck of unique spells. And the replayability and the fun of this game comes in finding these incredible combos, and it feels so satisfying, and it makes you want to keep coming back to the game to see if you can find ways to chain these cards together. So this is a good time as any to show you this incredible combo chain that Hannah had in our last game. So let me go through these cards and you can understand what she was doing that was so cool. So the first card here is Betrayal. So deal 5 damage, which is already strong. Your opponent gains 3 mana cards. Okay, so I'm getting cards. Sounds like a good thing. Next card, Shared Power. You may give your opponent 1 mana card from your hand. Again, I'm getting mana cards. That's great. If you do, gain 4 mana cards. Pretty good. So you're charging yourself up, but she is giving me a card. And she would give me a 4 mana card, the best, rarest mana card in the deck. Why? Well, then she's got Drain Soul. Your opponent must give you the highest power mana in their hand. So I give the 4 back, and then she deals damage equal to that mana's power. So she gave me a 4 for a second, took it right back and dealt me 4 damage. And then this last card, Stone Crush, deal 1 damage for each mana card in your opponent's hand. So she's been feeding me all these crappy mana cards, and then boom, Stone Crush hits me for, at one point, I think I took 8 damage from that card. So it's cards like that, it's combos, it's chain effects like that that make this game really replayable, because you're looking for that Stone Crush, you're looking for that Doom Drop, right? You get these really cool cards, and how can I synergize my spells or kind of mitigate or move spells around to make this combo work? I think that's super fun and super replayable, and I am really dying to explore this deck because I'm sure that even after all these plays, I haven't gotten through all these spells. So replayability is definitely there. I give it an 8.5 out of 10 for replayability. Sixth is length and fun factor. I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10 for this, and let me tell you why. So first of all, the length. The average game of Wizards of the Grimoire takes us about 30 to 35 minutes, which I think is the perfect length. Hannah wanted to go a little bit longer. She thought maybe we could start with a higher HP. I said, no, this is the perfect sweet spot for a game like this. A 2-player card game, it doesn't overstay its welcome, and anything short, if it was like 20 minutes, it would feel unsatisfying too short. So I love the 30 to 35 minute range. Now, the fun factor, okay? There's 3 things about this game that are so brilliantly designed as far as pacing, length, and fun factor that give me a reason to give it a 10 out of 10. First, you do not gain health in this game. So you start with 60 HP and it only goes down. There are no cards in this deck that regenerate, that let you heal. And I love that because you don't get to a point where, I hit you for 4 and then you heal on your next turn for 10. That's not that satisfying, right? So there's this arc where you're at 60 and almost every single turn you're going to take damage until you hit 0. I love that precipitating tension of you don't heal, right? You just lose health. 2, I really love the way this game snowballs. At the beginning of the game, you start with 1 and then 2 cards very quickly, and then you'll add a new spell each turn, and eventually, instead of doing 2 basic damage or 4 damage per turn, you're hitting them for 8 or 13 or 20 damage because you're activating all these spells and they're comboing off each other, and it's absolutely brilliant. That is so much fun to see your spell tableau grow and synergize and deal massive damage. I love that. And finally, and I think this is absolutely brilliant, I love that the game pacing speeds up as you go. So one of the things on your turn that takes the longest is adding a new spell to your tableau, but toward the end of the game you have 6 spells, your maximum spell count, and you can only replace spells that are unused, meaning there's no mana on them. And oftentimes toward the end of the game, at the beginning of your turn, all of your spells have mana on them. So you can skip that whole replacing spells thing, and even if you could, a lot of times you don't want to because you like your tableau, which means turns go faster. And I love that because the pacing of the game, again, gets faster and faster and faster, and your spells are getting stronger and stronger, and you're taking more and more damage and dealing more damage, and it's this like absolute climax crescendo to the end and somebody gets 0. It is so much fun. It's tense all the way to the end. It's fun all the way through. 10 out of 10 for length and fun factor easily. And finally, cost versus value. So this game is available for pre-order later this month, and the cost is $34.95. Now, at first glance, I do feel like that's a little bit expensive, although the more I think about it, you're getting these incredible cards, 70 spells, you're getting gorgeous artwork, incredible card quality, you're getting this wonderful packaging, you're getting an incredible game design, and a really great two-player experience. So, all that being said, $35 does not seem terribly expensive, but I will give this an 8.5 out of 10 for cost versus value. And that's it. If you take all the scores and average it up, Wizards of the Grimoire gets a final average score of 9 out of 10, which is an exceptionally high rating using my system. So fantastic job, guys. This is, I believe, their first game they've designed together, and it is just phenomenal. I am so floored by the design, by the components, the artwork. This is a great, great game. If you're into this game at all, if it seems like it might be up your alley, I highly recommend you check out the website. I'll leave that down in the description down below. Flip through the gallery, read more about the thematic setting of this game, and you will not be disappointed, I'm sure. So, thank you, Grimoire Games, for the wonderful game. I am looking forward to many more plays of this. In the comments, can you let me know what some of your favorite two-player only card games are? I had to think about it for a second. My favorite probably is Seven Wonders Duel, and if you can call Targi a card game, that's another exceptionally extra good two-player only card game. So 2 more for you to check out. But anyway, do that, and in the meantime, have a wonderful week. Take care, and happy gaming. Bye.